Welcome to Mose Cybersecurity Institute. My name is Benjamin Mose and I'm the founder of the Institute. I'd like to share with you what the three core pillars of incident response are. The first one is logging. Logging means that we need to capture technical logs on as many systems as possible, because when a breach happens, without logs, we cannot investigate it. Now, if you call a professional team of incident responders, you'll see that they have ways of extracting logs from machines in some cases, but really, you want to have a proactive strategy around logging. You want to be able, for example, to turn on all the logs for your emails so that you can figure out which IP logged against which account, which emails did they access, which files did they view, which email that they deleted, and so on and so forth. If you don't have these logs, then you can't investigate an email compromise, for example. If you're targeted by somebody who would attack an application and you don't have logs to be able to figure out what query they ran when they executed a malicious command on your machines and applications, then it becomes very, very difficult. We have to guess. And when we have to guess, what's going to ultimately happen is we're going to have to elevate the crisis. We're going to have to assume the worst case scenario. We're going to have to assume that the adversary maybe stole all of the data, when in reality, if we had the logs, we could find out that they only looked at 10 records. And so we cannot manage a crisis in the most effective manner if we don't have technical logs that we can interrogate and get answers from. The second core pillar of incident response is practice. And this is where, in my opinion, a lot of organizations are not investing enough into. They're not practicing enough. Incident response is not handled by having a Word document that sits on a file share and that is reviewed once a year. That doesn't work. That helps you meet your compliance requirements, but it does not help you respond to a major crisis when it happens. So here's what you need to do, and this is actually very simple, and especially if you're a small or medium-sized organization, you could do this at any point and you can do it several times a year. You design a very simple cyber breach scenario. You say, for example, all right, we're going to assume that somebody in our finance department has had their credentials compromised. The attacker has gone into their emails. They've been able to identify an invoice that was going to be paid, and they tampered with the bank account details by editing the PDF document. And as a result, our organization has made a payment overseas to a criminal syndicate. This is a very common cyber attack that many businesses face these days. And what you do is you simply pretend and you run the exercise by email. We don't even need to have a meeting or anything like that. We say, this is the scenario, this is what's happened. And we now go to the IT team and you say, just assume this has happened. I want you to show me that you're able to get the email logs that we would need to investigate these incidents. I want you to show me that we're able to get the records of everything that an employee has done in their email account for the last year. I want to know every file that they've accessed, every email that they've deleted, every email that they've sent. Do we have those capabilities? Once we've done that, we move away from IT, because IT is just there to clarify and bring answers to a compromise. Then we go, okay, legal now. Let's assume that we have indeed paid money to a critical syndicate. What could happen? Do we have any legal obligations that we need to fulfill here? Do we need to protect ourselves in any way? And they need to provide a response. Were there any suppliers that were involved? Would we need to communicate to them what's happened? If we do, what do we share with them? In what manner? So now you need to bring in the PR department or the PR person. Okay? We know that the business executives are going to require us to monitor the situation, and give them updates as we are responding to the breach. So we can draft memos. How good are we at communicating with people who don't necessarily understand the technical details? They're going to have concerns around their compliance obligations, their legal obligations, their community obligations, the reputation of the company, the financial loss. And so what we do is we do this almost just by email. We don't need anything else. We don't need any meetings. We just do this by email. We don't take people away from their work. And we take a very simple scenario and we run it over 2 weeks. So something that, we could do in an afternoon. We're not going to do it over 2 weeks because that way it doesn't disrupt anybody's work. And as we go and we run this scenario, we're going to realize where we're not prepared to respond. We're going to realize the things that we hadn't considered that we would need to respond to and be on top of. We're going to involve the legal departments, the PR department, the marketing department. We're going to have to communicate to the board maybe in this fictitious scenario. And it's going to give everybody a chance to see themselves mentally in a breach situation and understand what their role is, what their responsibilities are, and what they need to do so that we can all work as a team and succeed in managing this crisis. And finally, the last pillar of incident response is crisis management. When a real crisis happens, we do need to work as a team. And we need to make sure that the people who lead the investigation and who lead the recovery from the breach are people who can build relationships with people so that we can all come together as a team. We need to make sure that the IT department will have the mandate and the authority to deploy in real time security controls to make sure that the breach never happens again, that the adversaries don't come back, or that the breach cannot escalate to a new level. We find ourselves very often that we're responding to a breach, the adversary is on the network, and we got to wait 3 days for the next board update so that the board can, allow the IT department to spend $30,000 to deploy something that would block the adversaries right now. We need to make sure that in a time of crisis, we enable everybody and empower them to have the tools, and they are allowed to do the right thing by the organization and by everybody in the company. Another example is when we respond to email compromises and we say, hey, you just need to turn on two-factor authentication for maybe one team, not the entire organization, maybe just 10 people. Oh, but to do that, we need to get now the authority from somebody who's on holidays. It's like, okay, well, are we going to wait 2 weeks until they're back to get the authority? No, they should have given the authority in advance. In a time of crisis, they should have allowed and empowered their people to make the right choices in the moment. And so it's very important that you also practice, anticipate all the things that you're going to need to manage a crisis. And that you'll have the right people that can communicate effectively without passing on any kind of fear, that understands compliance requirements, that understand how to communicate with suppliers and customers, and that can really bring to bear an entire organization's capabilities and goodwill to respond to a major crisis. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.